And away we go. So welcome everybody to February Tech Talk with Microkeeper and John Arrigo. Is it Arrigo?
It is, yeah, that's
John
right.
Arrigo, Microkeeper. So as I'm sure a lot of you have heard about Microkeeper, but an online payroll management platform for business owners and bookkeepers, and looking after the whole process from HR, rostering, timesheets, leave management, the payroll processing, STP reporting. I didn't know until I looked today. There's also some award interpretation and job tracking. There's a mobile app. Of course, it does super, and it probably does a lot more than that, which we're going to find out about from John. So let me hand over to John, who's just going to give us a little bit of info and a bit of a chat and then a demo of the product. As usual, people, if you've got questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A, and I will monitor that and throw to John, and then we'll also have time at the end for questions. If we have, if we've still got some more to get through, that's fine. So John, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks so much for having us. And it's fantastic to see everyone so interested. It's a pretty hot topic at the moment. We're definitely loving it down here, because usually payroll isn't that sexy as a topic, but yeah, hopefully we can change that. I sort of just thought to start off with, if we talk about sort of the automation process and why having a fully automated platform for what we'd like to call employee management is a benefit. So what we consider, employee management, and what we do in Microkeeper is we start from basically once that employee has been hired. So once you say, yep, you've got the job, then we can take over. So from here, there's the paperless onboarding, the employee self-service. Then we have our core HR module, which can look after things like employee contracts, licensing, codes of conduct, all of those sort of nitty gritties that need to be sort of ironed out prior to the staff member coming to work. We've got an ability in the platform for them to view, cite, sign, upload documentation, etc. From here, it then moves through to the rostering module. So rostering in our system is broken down into a number of areas. And obviously, being that we are a payroll system, we can then overlay payroll information. So prior to a roster going out, you can start to see, oh, this is what this is going to cost, and can I do it a better way? Some people use it for budgeting and maybe even tendering. Moving that data then into payroll, well, because we timesheets, because we are holding the rostering, we can then overlay it and we can give you a variation report. So what are people doing versus what do we want them to do? And then obviously once that's all approved, then we roll through to payroll. And as you touched on earlier, yeah, award interpretation can come into that. So we can automate the award process. So there's no manualized calculating of overtime, extra earnings, deductions, etc. That's all fully automated.
If we were in a room together at the moment, I think people would just be cheering about that.
Absolutely. No, that's great. So yeah, basically from there, you've obviously created all of your pay slips. We then run some automation around error checking of pay slips, which will show you. Then we obviously want to push that data through to STP, which we can do in one button click. And then obviously the reporting on it to the Xero's, MyObs, QuickBooks accounting systems of the world is again as seamless as potentially a push or an upload or a download, depending on the capability. Finally, you've got super clearing, and then obviously all of your beautiful reports of all of that data. Now, that overview is basically the explanation of why it's so good to have it in one system and how you get automation. Because if we have all of these elements, we have the ability to overlay, we have the ability to compare, and we have the ability for the system to do it. So the system can show us the information that we need. The system can do the comparisons for us and just give it to us really cleanly, really easily, so that we're not viewing multiple documents or taking guesses. It's all there together. And we're only relying on that one area of the platform. So as an overview, that's sort of what we try and tackle. So from when you employ the staff member to basically when you terminate them, we do that and everything in between in regards with management of like payroll. So sort of without further ado, what we'll do is I will share my screen and we will move through to the demo. Now, I think I might need to be enabled on the screen sharing. Yes, I am. You just need to enable the screen sharing and then we should be good to go.
Thought that would have been done, but that's okay. Sorry about that.
No stress. Perfect. Great. So I'll just share that one there. Fantastic. Okay, great. That should come through any second now. All right, perfect. So we've got the screen shared there. Hopefully everyone can see that. Now I'm going to go through this area of the platform. So from the very beginning, what are we wanting to do? Well, we want to log into the system. Now I'm logging in to this platform as a total administrator. So I can see everything, do everything, and there's no restriction on this particular account. So from the first point of view of Microkeeper, what do we see? We see what we call the employee control panel. So this is for your managers, admins, payroll office, bookkeepers, accountants. This is the first page they'll see. The idea is it's a 24-hour live snapshot of exactly what's going on in the business, whether that comes to rostering, so we can see who's getting rostered, and we can look at rosters in regards with location, department, role within the department, job, start time, end time, and break. So this is showing us an overview. The central section is the activity feed. So this is a 24-hour audit of anything that's happening. So whether it be, someone's passwords being modified, if someone's updating personal details, if it's a clocking event, rostering's being available, payroll's being run, you name it, we can record it. So there's no longer a question of, okay, who did this or why did this happen? Because we've got an answer here. This is who did it. This is when it was done. So let's go and have a chat about it. We obviously can expand on this to as far back as you've been using the platform via scrolling down to the very bottom and clicking view more options. On the far right, you've got clocking status, green symbolizing on, gray symbolizing off. These are all buttons. So if a manager requires to clock someone on, they can do if they've forgotten. We also can utilize this for emergency evacuation. You have a tick box scenario while you're at the muster station. If you do have a scenario where someone's not answering when you're calling out, you can click on their avatar and we'll see things like name, email, phone number, and then finally next of kin, email, phone number, and name there as well. So if we do need to reach out quickly, we can do. One of the common things we hear is, you're at a muster station and where's the attendance book? It's back in the burning building, or so forth. So this enables you, anyone who's got a phone, anyone who's got a tablet, anything with an internet connection, we can access this information. Finally, we have leave management. So leave management will come through automatically to the manager or HR department via a notification email usually. Now, once that occurs, they can either click the link in the email or they can log into Microkeeper to view the leave. So when I hit the view button here, we come to our leave review area and it shows us an overview of the leave. Within this overview, we can see what the leave's all about, but we need further information to make a decision. So, okay, we can now see the balance of leave for the staff member, hours requested, what the balance would look like once we've paid it out. We also see if there's an uploaded document, maybe a sick leave document, study leave supporting document, or the like. Centrally, we have the overlap of the leave. So does this leave that I'm about to make a decision on overlap with any existing staff members in the business that I need to consider? So we don't want to get into a situation where we get to Christmas, our business works through Christmas and everyone's off because we didn't quite realize who had already been accepted. Finally, past paid, that's the ability for you guys to see if I'm making a decision based on a few people requesting leave at the same time, who do I want to prioritize? So maybe who had this time off last year, who's had leave most recently, etc. Obviously, we can make a note, comment to the staff member, which goes through the email portal as well, change the leave if there's been an error. We can then decline or accept it with the tick and the cross. Once that has been done, we can then not have to, worry too much about it, because it'll automatically roll through to payroll at the appropriate week. We could always view the approved leave when we need, and sort of make any other further decisions or judgments on that if so need. So the next thing that I like to talk about is sort of an employee journey within the platform. So firstly, obviously, from the control panel point of view, one thing to bear in mind is this panel is what we call dynamic. Like a number of our pages, you only see what you need to see. So if I've got a business that has 4 offices and I manage one of them, I would only see the applicable information to my particular office versus seeing the entire business and maybe getting confused. So that being said, let's talk about an employee journey. So basically, when you recruit a staff member, the first thing you're going to want to do is enter them into the system. Now, this can be done automatically via an API if that's something that the business does quite constantly, or alternatively, it can be done the manualized way, which is just simply entering in a first name, a surname, and a contact method like what I've got down here. Once that's entered into the system, we can send out the user credentials via either SMS or email, and they will get a username, a password, etc. Once that's done, the staff member has received it, they log into their Microkeeper platform and they come to what we call the employee console. Now, the employee console all starts with our skills and files. So this is what I was talking about earlier if you need to give people things, like, for example, I'm giving you a contract, an induction form, code of conduct, COVID checker, whatever it might be, can all be displayed in here. From this point, we can obviously hit the instructional. We can see what we're asking for. So this is a working with children check. We want the staff member to upload an image of the front and back and enter an expiry date along with the license number. So they can either start or resume the skill depending on where they're currently at. They can upload the document, enter expiries, put in license numbers. Now, if they don't have one piece of obviously the information, it'll automatically save, just like this one's done. So it said, yeah, we know the license number because you put that in earlier. We know the expiry. We're just waiting on you to put in the document. They can leave any sort of comment if required, and then finally they can digitally sign by checking the box and ticking sign at the very bottom of the page. So that's sort of how you can enter in a piece of information if it's required by the business. Now, as a system, we can set severity levels to these documents, and these severity levels can do things from not allowing the staff member to clock on, not allowing the staff member to be rostered, not allowing the staff member to be rostered on a certain site or department, and vice versa with rostering. Alternately, we can make it optional, we can make it important, and we can adjust, as I said, the severity and things that are done in the platform. Moving down the page, we have a complete your profile. So this is, instead of getting that wad of paper and entering it all in, the staff member can do it all online. So from entering, tax file decks that it's going to go through automatically with STP, to emails, emergency contacts, bank details, super fund member number, address, date of birth, gender, etc. All of that information that the staff member has, they can give to you through the platform. So, okay, once that's all done, what does a platform look like? Well, it sort of looks like this. Now, there's a few things that they can see at an instant. They can see their rosters. Now, this roster's got a number of functions turned on, like an accept decline button, don't display end time. We want to display an area of the business and a role. So there's a number of things turned on, but we can tweak that right down to be whatever you need. So take away the accept decline, just put an end time in. Don't worry about any notes and just display where the person's working. Again, this particular roster only applies to that particular staff member that's opened this system, but we can opt to have the full roster available as well. So that'll show anybody that they work with their rostered shifts also. So if they need to see the teams that they are working with, you can do so. Finally, you can link this roster to your calendar suite. So iCal, Google Cal, Outlook Calendar, all of those sorts of things. They can be automatically synced. So when the roster's available, it's automatically online. Clocking, one of our clocking options is browser, which is symbolized like by this one here. You do have the ability, obviously, to clock on off. This one also has the addition of breaks if you want it to be manualized. The addition to select a job that the staff member's working on and switch between, and obviously the clock off button. Payslips, as many as they've received in Microkeeper, segregated by year and run. Moving down the page, we have a message to payroll. We have timesheets. So staff member can see their timesheet growing. They can't edit it, but they can add a note to the timesheet if they need to. We also do have these buttons across here. So calendar view will show their rostering, leave. It'll also show them public holidays, expiry dates, all on a calendar view. And they, again, can sync all of that information to their personal calendar. Leave request form. So it'll show them what leave they can request. And it's as easy as them choosing the leave type. They can choose a time. It can show a balance of leave. That's what this particular account has on. We can also show a predictor. So it'll say, let's say you're looking for leave in December. It will say you currently have 59.9. We predict you're going to have 20 hours additional by December. So a total predicted of, let's say, 79. So a staff member at least knows they don't have to come to payroll and say, how many hours will I have by that time? Can automatically do it if you want. The other things that we've got there is we've got a messaging service. So a messaging service could replace email, or for more so for businesses who don't have internal email. This can be a solution where they can upload chat. It is all real time, so you can see when people are online. You can use it for posts like billboard type posts if you need. Change password, fairly self-explanatory. Skills and files, anything you've agreed to in the past, you can enter in an appropriate, you can review any of those skills and files and documents that you need. You can't make any changes, but you can review it. Setup of MFA, so multi-factor authentication, or two-factor, what a lot of people call. You can set that up as well if you have it on the account. So if you do want particularly just your administrators to have multi-factor, you can do that. If you can have it for the entire business, it's totally up to you. Can be turned on and off in the global settings. Personal details, staff members can update at any time, include phone number, email address, bank details, and home address. We also can put availability on here as well as an option, and this will go through to rostering. So more so for long-term availability, you might have uni students, people have commitments around picking children up, etc., can have their availability set in and obviously flagged through the rostering. So, okay, that's what an employee sees when they first come into the system. So now they've onboarded themselves, what are our next steps? Well, the next steps are we want to roster that particular staff member. So how do we do that? Well, we simply come to the rostering area of the system and we can look at the calendar suite. Now, the calendar suite within the Microkeeper platform is broken up into the three areas of the business. Now, again, it is a dynamic page, so we can limit what people see here. Now, within this area of the system, when we hit the display button, we are going to see all of the rostering by day. And we obviously, being a payroll system, are overlaying costs on these particular rosters. We display in colors, and as the color gets darker, the multiplier goes up, but you can choose to hide this on the behalf of the manager if required. We show unpaid breaks, we show total hours for days and week. We also have the ability here to validate who's available to work. So when you hit the drop down for a new staff member, these are the three that are available. We're also considering skills, we're considering their availability, we're considering if they're currently rostered on, as well as if they're on leave. So we know very quickly that in this area, the available section, people are right to go. So we can just choose from there. Eliminates the problem of having availability rosters or leave rosters or all of that, because it's doing it on the fly for us. Start time, end time. You can record a break at a delegated time if you want it, or alternately, it can be put in appropriate to the awards you're setting within the system. This particular one doesn't have any job tracking, hence the NA, but we do, if we scroll down the page, we will have one that will have a job tracking functionality. Let's have a quick look. Here's one here. So this one here is saying this particular employee is working at Restaurant South Wharf. They are working as the role of a chef, and they're working on the floor area of the business. Finally, we have a note to the staff member on what maybe we need to convey to them on a particular shift. So from here, what can we do? Well, we can do a number of things. First, we can what we call lock the roster, which enables it to be viewed online, syncs people's calendar, as well as cloning rosters. So if this roster is similar to next week, we can clone it into next week, or we can revert back to a template. Then we can push notify the staff members. We also have the ability to SMS the roster out. we can still print the roster and pop it up on the wall, like in a lunchroom or something like that, if we so need. So, okay, now our rosters are out, ready to rock and roll. It's now up to our employees to come into work. So the next step would be clocking hours. So our clocking all starts with the browser, which is what I was talking about before, simply logging in with a username and password and clicking a clock on button. You usually see this feature restricted via IP address. And obviously it can limit the people to only clock on the network. We then move to our app clocking option. Now, app clocking does come in sort of two forms. We have what we call location restriction, and we have what we call location tracked. Now, the difference between the two, location restriction is we are in essence putting a fence or geofence around the location or locations the business occupies, and the staff member app will only be active when they are inside of that perimeter. So if they're outside of the perimeter, it'll say, bring up a map on screen. It'll say, this is where you currently are. This is where the approved location is, and it'll give you a fastest route to get there. Obviously, if they're inside of it, it'll allow them to clock on and off. The location tracked option is more so for your delivery drivers, traveling sales reps, people that don't have a spot to go. They can be moving around radically. What this enables them to do is clock on and off sort of anywhere at all, but we will physically track where they are when they physically clock on, when they switch between jobs, and when they clock off. So it's not instant tracking all the time. It's just purely tracking when you're actioning the app. We then move down to our first of our hardware options, which is Fingerprint Scan. This option does come in a console option as well as a USB device, which is shown on screen. Really good for high volumes of staff members. Obviously, it's biometric, very, very easy to use, but potentially not so great for dirty environments. Because if we pardon the pun, if you can't see your finger because it's covered in dirt or glue, it's not going to work on a fingerprint scanner. We then move to near field communication, or NFC. Near field communication is a great option, also comes in a USB device, or it comes in a console option. Again, good for dirty environments, also good for environments where potentially you already have near field communication to open doors, turn printers on. You can usually utilize the same equipment. Then we have the console option with both included. So it includes Fingerprint Nfc. This option is really easy. You can either put it on the wall or desk mount it, plug it into power, connect it to internet, and away you go. It just sits in a sort of standby mode for the time while it's waiting for a staff member. Staff member comes, puts their finger on or scans their tag, and it works instantly. Our final option is facial recognition technology. This one here has been quite popular with COVID. It is an option that you can go totally touchless. So like the young gentleman on the right, just walk up to the unit, it will automatically clock you on or off depending on what status you currently are. We do also have an option of touch clocking, so you can actually just click the clock on and off button. Now, this one here, as mentioned, it is touchless, it is facial recognition. So some questions that we get at this point is, what about if you're in a dirty environment? Well, this particular environment was one of our test environments. It was a stainless steel fabricator. They get very, very dirty. And because facial recognition is all to do with measurement, it doesn't matter. So these guys would like sand and grind steel all day. They'd be covered in black sort of or steel shavings, and they'd go and try and clock on and off and it would work. So a great option if it is dirty, also touchless. And if your internet is a little bit patchy, it does work offline. It'll store the data to the device and then automatically sync it to Microkeeper once the internet returns. So it is not a bad option. Our final option is what we call self-managed. So if it's purely, I just want to change from paper writing in a book to putting it online, I can do that as well. So it's as simple as a staff member would have access to a timesheet area like this. They would only have access to themselves, and then they can click on like the add weekly shifts and they can key in their times, something like that. If they do split shifts during the day, it's no problem. You can split as many times as you need, and they can still assign the job and so forth. So we can sort of cover all bases. So, okay, the staff members now clocked on and off, which is fantastic. The next thing that we want to do is review the timesheet. So this is sort of one that I'd prepared a wee bit earlier, and what it looks like. Now, there are a number of options. I'm just going to reset these ones. There are a number of options that we can use in this area, and things that I'm going to explain. So the first thing that we want to look at is the entirely grey shifts, like these two bottom ones here. And what they mean is the timesheet and roster reflect, because in this page, what we're doing is we're doing a timesheet and roster overlay. So if we mouse over one of the shifts, it'll show us the timesheeted time, it'll show us the roster time. We can see that it obviously matches. We can see any breaks that are coming out, etc. Now, as soon as you start to see a color in with the grey, it means that there is a variation. And the way I like to look at it is red costs you more than you've anticipated in your roster or more than you've budgeted, and green has cost you less than you have budgeted. So red at the start of the day, they've started early. Red at the end, gone home late. Green at the start, been called into work late. Green at the end, you've sent them home early. So very quickly now, when we're scanning through timesheets, we can literally look at the colors and know exactly what's going on. Now, we can turn some automations on, like we can turn a clocking window on. We get people say, well, what about if my staff come in 10 minutes early, they make a coffee, they clock on, etc. It's no problem. You can turn a roll forward window on. So we just say, how early is too early? Let's say you say any more than half an hour we want to know. We'll basically turn a half-hour clocking window. So if a staff member clocks on within that window, it'll just roll their start time forward to the rostered. After the start time and end of the shifts, you can just do your standard clock rounding. It can be 1, 5, 10, 15, 20, etc. So, okay, what do we do when we're reviewing a shift? Well, we can simply come over and click the time, and we can make a change here or here. We can also hit a revert button, which will revert us back to the rostered hours. Now, anytime we do make a change, it will change the background color from white, like this middle shift, to amber, like this one here. It'll show us what the original entry was, along with the person who has made the change. A few symbols that we have. Notes, this is a note from a staff member. Job, we're job tracking this shift via the spanner. So to approve it, it's as easy as clicking once on the grey circles over here on the left-hand side, and it'll turn them into a green tick. So once that's done, we're ready to rock and roll. And from a manager point of view, you know, your sort of job's done. So what would the payroll officer be doing? Well, the payroll officer would then come in, and all they're gonna do is check this. So how many shifts are in the system and how many have been reviewed. So this is a 6-6, so we're in a perfect world. So doing payroll is very easy in Microkeeper. We simply click the payroll tab and click pay runs. We then choose new pay run. It'll default to the next pay run in our sequence. It'll ask us about what payment date we're doing to confirm that, and then it'll tell us everything's looking good. So it's as simple as clicking that blue pay run button, and it creates a pay run exactly like these ones here. Now then we hit payslip. So payslip brings us to the payslip page. And obviously in most systems, what we could do now is we could scroll through payslip by payslip and check them. But in our system, we have a slight difference. You can change to what we call the heat map. And what the heat map does is it checks for errors. So it'll compare things like this pay run versus last pay run. It'll check your clocking difference between this pay run and last pay run. It'll also compare the timesheet hours versus what's on the payslip. If it's your first pay run, are there jobs allocated, and does everything have a jobs allocation? Are there discrepancies, etc.? And it'll tell you what problems are when you mouse over these things here. So instead of looking at 50 pays and finding I've only got 10 that I need to attend to, it'll show you those 10 first. So let's fix those up. And if I want to then skim through the rest, you know, it's gonna obviously speed that process up for me. So I can then simply just hit view. It loads the appropriate payslip, so 8 in this scenario, and we can obviously come down and make changes. So this one said there was a no job. We can simply click the edit button, change it to what it is supposed to be, click update, and away we go. Now, we can change anything. So we can change hours, change rates, change multipliers, change classes, change STP, all in here. We also have the ability to add leave if someone's forgotten. We can add super if required. We can also do a final one-touch payroll. So basically, if this is a termination or a redundancy, we can add the redundancy over here with the appropriate termination, ETP, or lump sum classification, and then it's as simple as clicking final. It'll pay out all of the leaves, it'll set the payslip as final for STP and deactivate them in Microkeeper so you don't pay for them any longer. So, okay, we can continue to scroll down and we can look through all the pays, bearing in mind anything coloured in red, a staff member will not see, only things in black. So little things that people like is, obviously hiding certain types of leave. This one we're hiding personal, but it's on an employee by employee basis. So, okay, we've now checked the pays. We're really happy. What are our next steps? Well, we follow these 4 buttons across the top. So the first thing we do is we can create a backup. So creating a backup is as easy as clicking the backup button, and you can download a copy to either your server or your own computer. Then we can print payslips if required, and only print for the appropriate people. So that's set in the employee's profile, and then once that is set, you click that print button, it'll only print the appropriate people. ABA pay file, obviously download and upload that and pay everyone at once. And then finally, lock week. So distribute all the pay slips to the employees' profiles electronically and get ready for us to lodge STP. So lodging STP is as easy as clicking STP, lodge, choose whether it's a normal run or a final run in the system, and then click review data. So once we've clicked review data, it'll show us what we're about to send through to the ATO, and you simply just click submit and we're all done. So, okay, now we've done the pays. What's our next step? Well, our next step is we want to get this information and we want to put it into an accounting system. Now, this particular demo account has been set up with MYOB in mind. So it'll automatically default to the last pay run you've just done. And then it's as simple as clicking over here and clicking the HTML option. Now, the first time we ever log in here, it's going to ask us to assign the cost to business line item, expense, deduction, and tax to the appropriate account within your accounting system. Once we've done this and set it all up, so usually you might have, like, for example, this might go to your wages and salaries account, superannuation payable, PAYG. Once that's all set up the system remembers it, and then it'll either be, if it's 0, send data to 0 directly through the API, or if it's another type of accounting system, it may be a download upload scenario where you download from Microkeeper, upload it into the appropriate other solution. So, okay, we've now sent all of the information across to our accounting system. The next thing on a semi-regular basis that you're going to do is pay your super. So whether that is monthly or quarterly, you can choose the month or the quarter that you're wanting to pay. In this example, I'm going to do July, and I'm going to go over to the super via fund option. Now, in this instant, what the system's actually doing is it's checking all of the information and saying, hey, is there any missing information here that will make super refund to us? If so, display it, because the last thing we want is 3 months down the track, the super fund to refund us, and then we've got to find, a $255.60 number, and that's 3 people, and it was 3 months ago. So this will stop that, and it'll show us, what we need to update. So we've got 2 options at this point. One, we can update this information, or secondly, we can skip these people, put them aside, pay them later, and pay everybody else. So what would we do? Well, what we need to know is this is the amount we need to pay in total. So we can validate that by scrolling down through all of the funds that have been selected by your staff and see the amounts and the employees. We can then see a total for all funds and the breakdown of that. We then have that number 1139.25, which we're validating against this one here. So to pay it, we simply confirm that number in this box, click the I confirm checkbox, and a button appears here that says Pay Super. So it's as simple as clicking that button. It'll automatically direct debit this amount from the bank account that you specify, and it will automatically clear it through the Super Choice Clearinghouse Payments Gateway. So, okay, now your super's all complete. So back to the reports. Obviously, all of these reports over here are driven by this filter here. So we can filter by specific period, whether it's quarter or month or entire year, or we can go to a set date range. So we can choose the date range that we want and it'll build the reports, as well as entering in whether it's all staff, active, inactive, a certain group of staff members, states, if we're working across states, as well as individualized employees. Once we do make a selection, obviously we then configure all of these reports to reflect that selection. And then you've got the option to obviously view it online, export it as a CSV or Excel, or a PDF printable or savable option as well. One of the other ones that's quite good report we see utilized quite often is sort of these ones over here. So the payroll breakdown. So depending on how far you want to break the business down, this can show you the areas of your business and the pay types that are coming from that. We can also see the dollar amount and the hours to those particular areas of the business. We also have the ability to look at the same report, so exactly the same information, but by employee. So we can then see a report like this. We have those same areas of the business, but then we have the staff that are working within those areas, again, the hours and dollars. And I suppose then the final element would be the breakdown of super. So because we're breaking down by area and location or department, we can also do the same with super. So we can see a full end cost scenario if we need. So that's been a hell of a lot of information, but that would sort of bring me to sort of the round out and the conclusion of the formality of the demonstration. I suppose now I'd definitely open up to any questions or anything that you guys have sent through.
John, I'm wondering, have you got an example of how it looks when it gets to the accounting software? So once it's made it to MYOB or Xero or Reckon or whatever, how does it look? Is it getting in there as a journal entry? As you know, what's the?
Yeah, good question. There might be one here. I'm fairly sure there is. So basically, what it comes through. So let's say Xero, for example, it'll come through as a draft. An approved bill. So it'll come through to the bills area because it's basically what you're sending across. Is there one in here? No, there's not. What it's coming across as is it's coming across as a bill to be paid, because you don't have obviously any employees within the accounting system. They're all within Microkeeper, and this is like almost like call it the payroll invoice.
Yep.
That's how it works in Xero. MYOB's a slight bit different. It does go through like journals. So again, you're selecting the appropriate accounts and it goes through as journal, which is the same as sort of like a Reckon as well.
And what do you see? I mean, obviously you know this intimately and this is your world, but what do you see as the biggest benefits, say, for using this system as opposed to me doing it in my accounting software?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and definitely one we hear very, very often. There's a couple of big things. So a lot of accounting softwares don't have a time and attendance element, nor do they have the ability to automate your award. So things like, for example, what about when a staff member, changes pay rate because of their birthday, or changes pay rate because of a duration of employment? That's usually a manual change. What about if we've got to interpret a timesheet and we've got to see, if you've got, for example, something like, you might have a shift rule that says after, 8 hours of work, a staff member gets time and a half, and then after 10 hours, they get double time. But we also need to consider as well, if they go over 38 hours in a week or 40 hours, whatever you want to say, they then go into another set penalty. And we want to check which one's going to trigger, but then we want to create a hierarchy of which one do we want to action based on these scenarios. That's where a system like this sort of shines, because obviously we've got all of this information, we've got the timesheet, we've got all of the payroll rules, and we're actually building the pays. So instead of relying on other systems to give you this information, then you've got to interpret it, and then you've got to maybe send information back like leave or whatever. It's all in one place. So really what you're going to do is you're going to streamline, you're going to create less errors, and the automation level of the entire process is really going to elevate. So when you start to see businesses that have got lots and lots of staff members and very intricate awards and things that you really need to take into consideration, you can see that it's very common for us that we might have seen, something that may have taken, let's say a 2 payroll officer team an entire week to do the payroll. brings it down to like under a day. So it's because of that automation that you've got all in one system. Yeah.
And just tell us a little more about the award integration. You know, is it that Microkeeper already has programmed in every condition of every award, or do we need to do some of that when we select the award that is applicable?
Yeah. So what we do is we give you the back end tools. So we've got the ability to automate all of the conditions. But what we find when we speak to businesses is, nothing is ever the same, because that old chestnut of it's up to the interpretation of the business, like I'm interpreting the award. Now, some businesses might say, yeah, we think we're retail, but we actually manufacture garments as well. So we're a hybrid of retail and manufacturing. So this triggers here and that triggers there, and et cetera, et cetera. So what we do is we say, all right, instead of just having a one size fits all, it is fully bespoke. So we give all the tools in the background for you to utilize to actually automate that process. Now, that may seem quite daunting, but it's not, because what happens is during the setup phase of Microkeeper, that is all taken care of for you. So you'll be assigned an account specialist, and that account specialist works with your payroll team to get it right. So it's like, okay, how do we want this to work? What awards are we on, etc. Let's configure the system to basically reflect exactly what you're after, but fully automated.
And so let's say for a business of 10 employees, you've got a mixture of some casuals and some hourly and some salary. What is a realistic time frame for us to say, ring you up? Yes, we want to do it. What's the time involved to then being able to use the system?
Yeah, good, really great question. So as an overall, I'll sort of answer that in a second way, and it sort of doesn't really matter per se the size of business. It's relatively similar all round. We say allow one entire month from when you say yes, you want to utilize the platform, to when you're actually doing payroll fully on your own out of Microkeeper. Now, why I say that is what happens is, let's just go through that process. You say, yes, you want to utilize the platform. The first thing we say is create an account, and you've got 1 week to give us the the employee payroll information. So like the employees, all of their details, so address, date of birth, etc. We then upload that into the platform. Then from that point, you can automatically get all your staff members to start clocking, even though the back end might not be configured, because the back end only needs to be configured when we do our first pay run. So let's just say for this example, it's weekly. So we're at the end of week 1, we've got the people onboarded. Week 2, staff members could start clocking. So the end of week 2, start of week 3, we could run your first parallel pay run. So during week 2, while everyone's been clocking, we've been training your managers and training your payroll office on what's going to be the next steps within the system. So week 3 comes, or start of week 3, we've run our first parallel pay run, and we've made sure that everything's going right and made any minor adjustments if required. Week 4 then comes around. So end of week 3, we keep getting the staff to clock, and week 4, we do our second parallel pay run, making sure that all of the pay conditions are correct and it's reflecting perfectly. Basically, at the end of then week 4, staff members are still clocking hours. You guys can make a choice. Hey, is this amazing? Are we doing everything we want? Yes, we want to progress with Microkeeper. Perfect. What we then do is upload all of your pre-accumulated leave balances. We instruct you to do a final pay in your current system, and then Microkeeper will do the first pay out of our system and submit through STP. So if you look at entire month, would get you all of that done, including your side-by-side runs. Yes, we have done it quicker. We have had businesses come through and just go, no, not doing any side-by-side. Our last system expired last week. We need to do payroll as of today. And, we work with businesses to help. But, if you said as an overall generalization, that's pretty standard.
Yeah, good. Sounds like a smart, sort of sustainable, manageable process for everybody, the managers and the employees who are using it. And so what about the employees, sort of going back to the I think, was it self-service? Is that what you call it? Sort of, because we all know there are so many employees out there who get their details wrong. Super fund, tax file number, whatever it is. So how does that work? Is it, you know, are you, say, is the payroll manager verifying that somehow, or is it completely dependent on the employee giving the right information to the
Yeah.
platform?
Yeah, good question. So there is a bit of both. So things, for example, like bank account, BSBs, tax file numbers, super funds, very much so we are doing the validation on the fly because there are algorithms around that. And even for, let's say, super fund, we don't give them just a box and say, type in your super fund. It's like search, and they might go host, and it goes, okay, here are the 3 host offerings. Which one is it? And you can choose it. Obviously, we can search via USI, etc., ABN. Other things that potentially, again, we can validate is address. So again, you start typing your address, it then chooses, it goes, hey, is this what you mean? Is that what you mean? Is this what you mean? So we can do things like that. Things that we then validate sort of in a sort of stage 2 validation is email and phone number. So basically what happens there is they enter their email in or enter their phone number if you guys haven't done so already, and then it sends them an activation key to that number or that email. So again, we're checking that that is correct. So
Right.
yes, there is a lot of validation in the background that's happening all automatically. Things that potentially we may not validate or we won't validate is like, let's say, for example, they put in next of kin and that person's name was Sally Smith and they put it in as Simon Smith. That's not something that we would validate because it's just sort of not a validatable field from our point of view. But obviously the numbers, yes, we can. So yeah, there's a little bit of both there, but all the ones that we specifically can validate, we do. The other thing is that as someone is onboarding themselves, what you will see in what we call the activity feed is when people are doing things. So let's say, for example, Jim updates his or adds his bank detail, it'll all come through. So this activity feed then comes through to the appropriate payroll office or officers, and it says this person's doing all of these things. So you can literally see on a daily basis what people are entering in and what pieces of information. So you don't have to physically go in and go, oh, I looked at that, I think that was all the same as last week. Oh, that might be different. It's going to tell you exactly, the new bits of information as well.
Mm. And on the jobs,
Yep.
so we can allocate different jobs here. Does that information also flow through to the accounting software?
Yeah, it does. And great question. Absolutely. So yes, you can allocate jobs. So we do have a number of statuses, obviously quoted, active, pending, and finished. So once a job is active, it means it's selectable. Now, we can select a number of ways. We can select via the roster. So when you've clicked the drop down and said, yep, they're working on this particular job, the system can automatically select it. Alternatively, we can have the employee select it when they're clocking in. Or the third way is selecting it off a GPS option. So we can go, this job is at this particular location on this GPS marker. So I know that if I work here, I need to be clocking on to, let's say, the MCG, versus if I'm over here, I'm clocking on to Marvel Stadium. So we can do that via GPS. And then I suppose the final way is via hardware. So if you guys or a client utilizes a fingerprint scanner or a facial recognition or whatever, it has a unique job ID at the back end of it. So basically it knows that if I clock on this fingerprint scanner right here, I'm at location 1. If I go down the road to that location over there and clock on with that fingerprint scanner, I'm on location 2. And that's where all of the, I suppose, all of that sort of core HR licensing stuff comes in. So there's critical skills, which are just for the entire business. You must do it. Otherwise, we won't let you clock on or get rostered. But then there's ones called critical shift, which is basically if I'm, let's say, for example, let's go back to, Marvel Stadium and MCG. If I'm working at Marvel Stadium and there's a certain induction that I need to do there, well, if I'm going to go work at the MCG, it's not mandatory that I've done the Marvel induction because I'm not at Marvel, I'm at the G. So it's a critical shifting. And again, that's why around hardware or GPS, we can then bring all of that together, sort of bringing that all automation back. So the second point of that question that you said was, does all of this information then go through to the accounting system? The answer is yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dump a fair bit of data into this accounting report and we'll see it. So what you'll see here is, like, for example, you've got annual leave, it's going to office sales. You've got basic rate going to the floor job, you know, etc. So all of these things can absolutely come through fully itemized. So you can either send it to the same account, it might be all going to, let's say, wages and salaries, but then you might utilize the tracking codes as well if it's something like a zero.
Yeah. Great. Okay. All right, people. Any other questions? That's a fantastic overview. It's really comprehensive. I can't think of anything that I want it to do that you haven't already shown me. But let's see what the people say. We've got to cover pricing, I suppose. Kerry, my clients are in North Queensland. If they adopted Microkeeper, how would you work with them and their staff in setting up the program, in person or online?
Good question. Really great question. So all of our setup is totally online, but it is one-on-one.
Okay.
So whether it is via like a Zoom or a Teams or a Hangouts or TeamViewer is more so when it's getting to the nitty-gritty. It's all one-on-one with what we call your account specialist. So you don't get sort of thrown to the wolves, if you like. It's basically you come on board with Microkeeper assign you an account specialist. Now, the way that's assigned is we look at size of business. We also look at industry that you're in. So we might say, as an example, you are a farming customer. So you're in agriculture and your business is 50 staff. We would then look at our account specialist team and go, who is the best to accommodate that person? And we'll say, oh, that person is Sally. So Sally will be your account specialist. She will set the entire system up, run through all of your training with you. As well as then when you ring in to Microkeeper on our 1-800 number, which comes through to our head office in Geelong, our phone system is a smart system where it will route you to Sally. So it'll go, this is the ID that you've come in with. We know that that ID is associated to this business. That business account specialist is this person. So then Sally answers the phone. Now, we always do have a backup as well. So just in case Sally's away or she's sick, something like that, the other person also knows your business and you've been introduced to them. The idea is you've always got a familiar voice. So yes, you can have an on-site option, absolutely. With COVID, it's taught everyone that let's go with the online option because we can all do it. But yeah, if you do want an on-site option, I'd put my hand up to go to North Queensland actually. But yeah, no, you do have off-site options as well.
Okay, now, so talk to us about pricing and, you know, whether it really makes sense to go with Microkeeper for any size business, or does it start to make sense, you know, at a certain point, for example, you know, once you get to 15 people or whatever, you know, does it, tell us about the options there.
For sure. So there's in essence 4 plans in Microkeeper. So we definitely look after businesses as small as 1 employee and as big as into sort of the tens of thousands of staff members. Now, if we look at the very small end, for argument's sake, we see a lot of, like, for example, you know, owner operator, like a gym's mowing or something like that, utilizing our free plan. So it is free for life. You can have 1 person in the system and so 1 employee and an administrator. So you're the owner and I'm employing my first staff member, Peter. Peter's on the books. Righto, that is a total free account for life and you get everything that we saw today.
Wow.
Then we have businesses who came to us that were, all we want to do is we're salaried staff members and all we want to do is comply with STP. Don't want any of the bells and whistles, don't want any onboarding. We want to do everything via paper. Don't want to use your clearinghouse. We just want to submit STP. That's it. So if you want to do that, yeah, you can jump on the STP only, which is $2.25. And you'll just be able to create a salary, pop it onto a pay slip and submit the STP. So that's an option as well. And most popular, like it's shown here, is the standard plan, which is the $4. So it's just $4 per employee per month. And that gives you access to almost everything in the system. The only sort of things that distinguish between the premium and the standard is premium allows you to access facial recognition versus the standard doesn't. So standard gives you everything else bar facial recognition, and premium gives you facial recognition as well. So
but whether that it's a minimum of $28 a month. So really, you know, if you're sort of costing it at $4 a head, you're saying seven employees a month at that rate. But you could obviously take that out for less
Of course.
employees and simply pay that minimum fee. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we do have plenty of businesses that may have started with us on the totally free option, and they've gone from, you know, 1 staff member to 2 to 3 to 4, and
Yep.
they're still utilizing the platform, and they might just stay static at 4. We do also then have, you know, other businesses who, you know, start at very small and then they grow exceptionally quickly. So obviously the price scales with them. You know, it really depends as well on, I would say, what you're after out of a system. So if you are looking at going, okay, well, you know, I might be a really small business. Like I've got three staff members. I run very little cafe, you know, but I do need rostering. I do need timesheets. I do want like all of my documents online, like my safe food services and all of that sort of stuff. Want STP, want super clearing. You know, it's still a very, very affordable option at $28 a month. It depends, you know, as I said, like if you were just someone that was like, hey, I've got 4 staff members and they're all salaries, nothing ever changes. I don't want anything really, like I don't want any of the bells and whistles. Well, yeah, you've got obviously a $2 option there as well.
And possibly this will be the final question. So obviously you've got a lot of clients who are business owners, they go directly with you. But for our audience, you know, we're bookkeepers, BAS agents, there might even be a few accountants listening into the audience. You know, how do you see, or how does that work? You know, what's that relationship? What role does the bookkeeper then have?
For sure. Yeah, great question. So we do offer what we call a Microkeeper partnership. So within Microkeeper, we have 2 distinct areas of the partnership platform, which is what we call either the partner or the expert. Now, it all depends on how much the bookkeeper, accountant, advisor, etc. wants to take on. So the partner model is purely, I've identified Microkeeper as a good fit for your business. Microkeeper, go. I don't want to have anything to do with it other than an introduction. So we would then do, let's say, the sale process, the demonstration, the setup, the ongoing support, etc., etc. We would do all of that, inclusive of the billing. You then move to the expert. The expert is, I want to take on a bit more role. You know, I might be the payroll officer for the business, or, you know, as an outsourced option, or whatever it is. I want to take on that more sort of intimate role with my clientele. So that's where the expert partnership comes in. And what that enables you to do is you get trained up to a level of our account specialty team. You also get trained on the sales process of the platform. You gain access to the demonstration accounts, etc. So basically, you become, as an advisor, accountant, bookkeeper, etc., become a Microkeeper client, and then your clients are your clients. So in essence, you do the sale of the product to them, you do the setup, you do the ongoing support, and for that you get a 50% revenue split in their subscription fee. So basically, the billing goes through you. You get billed by us at the reduced amount. You then have a number of options. So we don't dictate what you can do. Obviously, our prices on our website are our prices. If you want to sell it to your clients at what you buy it for and do your work for free, no problem, you can do that. If you want to split the difference and give your clients half and you keep half for yourself and sell it for less than what's on the Microkeeper website, you can also do that as well. You have got the ability to charge more. So some businesses say, okay, what we also include is our own audit processes and this and that and the other, and they package it all up and say, we're going to do the payroll for you, we're going to do the internal audit, we're going to do the this, the that, and the other. And inclusive of that is the utilization of the Microkeeper platform. That in total may cost whatever, let's just say $10 a staff member. You can do that too. So we don't sort of say what you can do and what you can't do. That's totally up to you as a business. But they're sort of the 2 main channels that businesses in this space take.
Great. Fantastic. Okay, well, look, we've managed to take the full hour, which went really quickly because there was a lot of detail we saw, which was really great. Yeah, let's just throw up your contact details. So if anyone wants to get a bit more info, talk to you about being an expert, anything like that.
So what you can do, probably the best way of doing it is if you come to microkeeper.com.au, you can either go to the More tab and then just come down to, just click on the Contact Us tab up here, which will bring you to this page here. Now, a couple of options, you can either ring this number here and you can talk to someone at our Geelong head office, or alternately, you can just come through, fill out this detail, select the sales and general inquiries area, and then pop in your name, email, phone number, and maybe a brief description of what you're interested in, whether it's partnership program, whether it's clientele or whatever. Send that across. That'll come through to one of my team, and then we'll definitely get straight back to you and organise a chat or whatever needs to be done.
Okay. All right. Well, look, thanks so much, John. That was fantastic to see in detail, and great to see the possibilities in action. Yeah, I love that there's just so much integrated all in the one platform, and it's it's a really affordable price for small business, which is great. Which is the majority of our clients. So
fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, people. I think we will finish up there unless there's any final questions, but I don't think so. And as usual, we'll put the recording up online within a few days if you would like to check in again. So we'll sign off. Thanks, everybody. And thank you again, John. And we'll see you all next month.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.